Interested in smart outdoor LED lighting that won't cost an arm and a leg? Today we're going to look at my outdoor lighting configuration, which is centered around the Fibaro RGBW Micro Controller. There's a lot of moving parts in this video, so stay tuned. This video is not a paid endorsement, and I received no compensation for making this video. Product links in the description are affiliate links, and I may receive commissions if you purchase a product through an affiliate link. Hi again, John Stone, the DIY Smart Home Guy, on the channel that's all about helping you make intelligent home automation decisions for your affordable smart home. If you're a lighting enthusiast like me, then you're probably looking for a full-color outdoor lighting solution that can be controlled through your smart home. Today we're going to look at how you can use pretty much any brand of affordable outdoor LED strips to create amazing scenes all year round. And since the holidays are fast approaching, I got these just in time. It's nice that we can change lighting themes at a touch of a button, and we're always thinking of new color combinations for the coming holidays. It all starts with this Fibaro RGBW Micro Controller. This little gem will allow you to take virtually any LED strip and control it inside your smart home. And since this thing is so small, it's not difficult to tuck it away into a tight place. This controller works with either 12 or 24 volts DC and has the ability to control red, green, blue, and white channels on standard LED strips. You don't need to worry about this 240 volts AC shown on the diagram. This unit actually requires a separate DC power supply, which we'll get into in a little bit. As you can see, the wire ports are pretty small, so you're going to need to make sure that you don't use power wires that are too large. I recommend using either 18 or 16 gauge wire. You'll also need a small jeweler screwdriver so that you can adjust the controller's wire clamps. You'll also need to take note of this little recessed hole here on the back of the unit. Inside here is a button that you'll most likely need when trying to pair the device into your hub. So let's take a look at how I put all of this together. My original goal was to install 7 LED zones that would light up the outline of the eaves of my home, as well as casting light onto the second floor exterior. The A, B, and C zones would have the ability to have separate color control, providing ample lights on the walls. The D, E, F, and G zones would also have separate controllers, giving me the capability to have 4 separate colors outlining the roof. After running a few tests and checking the balance of my bank account, I decided that 7 zones was probably overkill, especially on the second floor for the lighting. Not to mention the fact that there was too much overlap with the colors on the second floor exterior lights, making it difficult to achieve the exact coloring that I was looking for. So in the end, I settled on only 5 zones, with the most notable difference being the single zone that controls 2 strips that light up the second story. The other big change was to bring in an image projector that would send seasonal images to the stairs windows. I also wanted to create a modular design that would make it easy to replace any part that might happen to fail. And I didn't want something super expensive. Since I'm running a lot of lights, I wanted to keep the cost down, and that seemed like it was going to be difficult. So here's a list of components that I used, and as usual, there are affiliate links to everything in the video down in the description. And now's a good time to hit that subscribe button and click on that bell notification icon to be notified when I release new videos or I start live streaming. So here's the parts list for everything that I used when I installed these lights. For me, it came up to about $682, and the bulk of the pricing is around this Fibaro RGBW Z-Wave microcontroller. Being that I have 5 of them, that's $350. So I suggest if you can find these things on sale, you try and go that route, because $70 a piece is a little bit spendy. There'll be a copy of this parts list over on my Patreon channel. That's patreon.com/DIY So looking at the entire parts list, there's the Fibaro microcontroller, this ABI 12 volts DC power supply, this CableTech utility enclosure. I used the TinKin IP67 RGBW 16-foot strips, and these LED net 5-pin RGBW male connectors. And we're going to use these to go from the Fibaro into the lighting strips. I went ahead and picked up some 16 gauge outdoor landscape wire. You may need less than 50 feet of it, but I have 2 or 3 runs, so I picked up 50 foot. It's not that expensive. Then you're going to need, depending on how far away your LED strips are from your microcontrollers, you might need some of this RGBW extension wire. I also used the Wago wire nuts inside these little electrical boxes here, and that helped me to get everything in pretty simply, and that also makes it maintainable. I can just change around those those wiring leads as I see fit. And last but not least, I have this Halloween/seasonal projector, and you can see that I get little shamrocks, I can get the stars and the hearts in case I want to do something on Valentine's Day. So now let's look at specifically how I put it all together with the power supply. Since my plan is to have up to 8 LED strips, I wanted a robust power supply. This is why I selected that ABI 500 watt 12 volt power supply. This unit should run 8 15-foot strips with no problem. The TinKin LED strips that I purchased did come with the power supply, but I didn't want to deal with this big bulky power supply and the hassle of running 120 volts to all of the lighting locations. Not to mention the fact that this thing would be a pain to try and enclose in 5 different zones. So for me, a single 12 volt power supply was really the only good option. I enclosed the power supply in this Cable-Tech utility enclosure and then connected it into an outdoor outlet that I enclosed in a weather-rated electrical box. The power supply supports 3 separate wiring zones, which should be fine for me. I can break out the lighting zones into remote junction boxes. Now that we have the power, it's time to think about the LEDs. As I mentioned, I selected the TinKin IP67 16-foot LED strips. IP67 basically means that they're dust and waterproof. The strips that I'm using come with this 12 volt power supply, and they also include this IR controller and the remote. This is good for some people, but hardly the smart home solution that I'm looking for. I want my lights to come on automatically and be fully controlled through my smart home hub, so the infrared controller isn't going to cut it for me. When it comes to LEDs, you're going to have a lot of options, so you're just going to want to make sure that you match the voltage to that of the power supply. Just as a general note, the 16-foot strips are usually 12 volts, and the 32-foot strips are usually 24 volts, but you'll want to double check. Just make sure that you match the voltage of the strip to the voltage of the power supply. You have a lot of options for how you install the LED strips. I use these little 3/8 inch clamps to hold mine up. Since I'm not really sure how well these strips are going to hold up in the sun, I didn't want expensive LEDs, and I want to be able to replace them easily if I ever need to. Next, I installed these electrical boxes in the locations near where the ends of the wiring would be. I used the Hubble Bell plastic outlet boxes to make sure that I don't interfere with the radio signal from this Fibaro unit. After the boxes were in, I strung the 16 gauge wire from the power supply over to the remote boxes. I also want to point out that I tinned every wire before installing. I left a link to a great tutorial video about soldering in the description below. Soldering the leads is an important step. Tinning helps ensure that you'll have a good connection and you reduce the chances of a stray conductor shorting something out. You may also want to practice doing this a few times before you do your own installation. So to get these Fibaros hooked in, we're going to solder the 5-pin connector into the 5-wire LED strip, and we're going to apply heat shrink over these solder joints. And the end product is going to look just like this. And I went ahead and enclosed all those splices into another piece of heat shrink to give it some rigidity. And then I've also tinned the leads on all of these wires here. So now we have a connector that will go into the LED, and this will be the end that goes into this Fibaro RGBW Micro Controller. So I've got my power leads here. This is that 16 gauge wire. One thing you're going to want to make note of is which one of these is the positive and the negative. Now the wire that I chose, it's kind of hard to see here, but you'll be able to see there's some writing on this one leg of the wire here, and that's what I'm using as my positive lead. So I just have this little connector right here. I'll put a link to these also. And we're going to take these and we'll take the power leg, and this is where I'm using this Wago wire nut here. And I'm going to bring this into here. And we'll connect that in, and then I'll take the negative lead and I'll just bring it in here. So on my pigtail, I've got the black, which is the power wire, and we're also going to bring that into this Wago. Now let's give all these a good tug test to make sure they don't come out. Okay, so first things first. So if you look on the bottom side of this, you're going to have the 12 or 24 volts DC, then your ground. These are just external sensor wires, so you can actually use certain types of light sensors or humidity sensors to also trigger each one of the colors on the lights. So we'll start by bringing in our black wire, and notice that this is trimmed fairly short so that it can go in there and the wire will be fully enclosed once it's inside. Then we're going to take our ground wire here, and we're going to put it in slot number 2. And I just want to point out again, one of the big reasons why you want to tin those wires is if you didn't have the solder on the ends of those wires and you go to stick those strands in there, you might get one that would cross over and short this thing out, and that wouldn't be fun. Let's put those in, so we'll get that red in there, where it'll be on the 4th slot. As soon as I opened up the SmartThings app and I had the power plugged in on this Fibaro controller here, it just came right into my SmartThings app here. And now we can apply power again. And you can see here on the SmartThings app that I've selected blue, and I've got this nice blue color coming out of the LED. We'll flop that over to a green. Let's throw this little white piece of paper in there. Hopefully we can pick that color up a little bit better. Got the various shades of green. Let's see if turning that, brighten this up a little bit. It's still looking kind of blue there, but trust me when I tell you, here in the studio, that is a green. And we'll come over here and we'll look at the red. And we've got the blue. So you can see it changing color, and it's a greenish hue. So as you can probably tell, I had a lot of fun putting this together, and I hope it helps you put together your dream LED lighting. For more reviews, tips, and DIY videos, visit azhb.com. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to click like. Over here are a couple of other videos that you might enjoy. And thanks to all of you that already support me over on Patreon, patreon.com/DIY Smart Home Guy. Until next time, cheers.